So far in the course, we've used CSS to change the appearance of text.
This video is brought to you by Pies Academy.
Now we're going to use CSS to change the appearance of a list that's displayed in the web browser. I've already created this unordered list of bands. This tells you a little bit about my musical taste. So here we've got a list that includes REO, Speedwagon, Styx, Foreigner, etc. So in order to create the CSS, we've got to use the style element, which I'll put here in the head. And don't forget, inside the style element, we can only write CSS code, not HTML. So we're changing gears a little bit to write some CSS. So let's say we wanted to change the style of the bullet. Now, I showed you how to do this using the HTML, but frankly, it's more appropriate to do it using the CSS, because really you want to do anything that has to do with the appearance of content using CSS. So let's go ahead and say for our unordered list, so we'll use the UL selector, we're going to set the following rule. List, style type, square. And that's going to give us that square bullet that you saw in an earlier video. And notice now my bullets have all turned to squares once I've saved and then refreshed here in the browser. So we could also do circle as a style type. And once I save, I'm using Command S or Control S on a PC, and then refresh, we get the circle, and the default is disc, D-I-S-C, and that giving us kind of the filled in bullet. I'm going to leave it at square for this. So we've looked at now a couple of the adjustments for the list style. Now, we also can use an image as the list marker. So I've put this image bullet.png. Now, the icon is actually bigger than the image itself. There's your actual image, really, really small kind of blue dot. It's actually 15 pixels by 15 pixels, and I created it in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead now and set that up so that becomes the actual bullet. So the way we do that is instead of using list style type, I'm going to take this out and we're going to use list style image. Now, if you have your actual HTML in a folder, you have to have your file that contains the bullet in the same folder. So the folder I'm using essentially is the desktop, and I have my bullet.png right here with my list.css HTML. You want them to be together, otherwise you're going to have to put a path in here. So this is what it should look like. List style image, and then URL, and then the actual name of the file. So let's go ahead and refresh. And now you'll notice that my bullet graphic has become the bullets for my entire list. So it's pretty easy to do this. It's just one line of CSS code, and there's your URL. Now, you might have noticed that by default, our list items are indented, and that may or may not work for you. So you have the opportunity to change the position of these bullets. So let's go ahead and use this time the LI selector to select the list items. And I'm going to set the padding left rule, which is this space here to the left of the bullet, the padding left, to 5 pixels, px. And I'm going to save and refresh. And let me try 15, because that didn't move it that much. And see how the text is moving away from the bullet? Or let's try padding left 0 pixels. And see the text will be almost on top of the bullet. So you can make that type of adjustment here if you want to adjust the space between the bullet and the item. The last thing you can control is the actual where the list markers appear relative to the edge of the list. So we're going to go ahead and use the list style position rule. And the options are inside or outside. So if you choose outside, I forget which is the default here, we're there. If we choose inside, like that, notice everything moves over because the bullets are inside the list. So if you look at kind of where the edge of the list would be, the bullets are now inside, or by default, they are outside. All right, so we've gone over a couple of different rules that allow us to change the appearance of a list using CSS. We talked about the list style type, square, circle, disk, etc. We changed the list style image to a bullet. We talked a little bit about the padding and how to adjust the position of the text, and then adjusting the list style position to outside or inside.